Imagine a queen, once crowned in splendor, loved by a warrior king, mother to a royal bloodline that would rule for over a century, lying in a dusty wooden chest, her corpse ogled by tourists, kissed by strangers, and slowly crumbling into powder. This is not a Gothic novel. This is real. This is the fate of Catherine of Valois. Her story is not just one of royal love or dynastic power. It's a haunting reminder of how even queens can be forgotten, violated, and turned into curiosities by time. Catherine's life shaped history, but her death and the grotesque spectacle that followed may be even more unforgettable. Catherine of Valois was born on the 27th of October, 1401. Her father was Charles VI of France, a monarch plagued by mental illness, and her early years were shadowed by national instability and civil war. Her first husband was the legendary King Henry V of England, a man known for his military brilliance and triumph at the Battle of Agincourt. Their marriage briefly united the crowns of England and France, and Catherine became Queen of England. But it wasn't her royal marriage that would change the course of English history. It was her secret, deeply scandalous second union. After Henry's untimely death, Catherine fell in love with a man far beneath her station, Owen ap Maredudd ap Tudor, a Welsh courtier. History remembers him simply as Owen Tudor. Their relationship was kept secret, possibly illegal under English law without the king's permission. Still, Catherine and Owen's love prevailed. The pair eventually married and had several children together. And from that hidden union came a new and powerful dynasty, the Tudors, who would go on to rule England for nearly 150 years. But despite her central role in birthing a royal lineage, Catherine was not celebrated. Instead, she was cast aside. After her death, her name faded and her body was treated with shocking disrespect, ignored by her descendants, desecrated by strangers, and nearly erased from history. Catherine died on the 3rd of January, 1437. She was only 35 years old. Her death came shortly after childbirth, but records suggest she had suffered from long-term health issues and had gone to Bermondsey Abbey seeking spiritual and possibly medical healing. Despite her controversial second marriage, Catherine was still granted a queen's funeral. It is believed that she was embalmed, as was the custom, with her organs removed and likely buried in separate containers, possibly along the funeral route. However, no confirmed records detail where those organs were placed. Her embalmed body was wrapped in cloth, encased in lead, and placed into a wooden coffin. She had a funeral at a church dedicated to her namesake, Saint Catherine, and then her body was moved toward her final resting place, Westminster Abbey, laid near her first husband, Henry V. On top of her coffin was a wooden effigy dressed in Catherine's own clothing. It was painted in lifelike detail, a long neck, soft features, a slight tilt of the head. The effigy's eyes were blue-gray, and it is believed a wig was once attached. Today, that effigy still stands in the abbey, though it now wears only a red shift. During the funeral, it had been dressed in a purple satin mantle, and the coffin itself was draped in cloth of gold, placed atop a grand hearse. On February 8, 1437, a second funeral service was held for her. Catherine was interred in an alabaster tomb in Westminster Abbey beside Henry V, but her story did not end there. For most, death marks the end. But for Catherine, it was only the beginning of a 3-century-long indignity. Some historians speculate that her tomb was meant to be temporary. Perhaps her son, Henry VI, intended to build a more permanent memorial, but he died before doing so. Her grandson, Henry VII, eventually demolished the old Lady Chapel that housed her tomb to construct a new one. During construction, her body was unearthed. The wooden coffin had decayed badly, and her remains were removed and placed in a simple wooden chest lined with sheets of lead, scraps cut from the roof of the very chapel that was being torn down. This makeshift box was then left on the floor, exposed near the tomb of Henry V, and there Catherine lay for 300 years, not honored, not remembered, but displayed like a museum piece. Visitors came. Some stared. Others paid to see her. One man, according to accounts, stripped away the cloth covering her face, chest, and legs. Her desiccated body was still intact, described as thinly clothed with flesh, like scrapings of tanned leather. It's possible she was buried naked beneath her shroud, making the display even more humiliating. Her corpse became an attraction. Tour guides at the abbey charged visitors $1 to view her. Her body, once regal and revered, was turned into a sideshow. People gawked. Some stole bones. Her remains were desecrated, looted, and passed around like relics of curiosity. Legend has it that Catherine gave birth to Henry VI at Windsor Castle against her late husband's wishes. Henry V had reportedly believed in a prophecy that a son born at Windsor would lose everything the father had gained. Catherine's disobedience, some claimed, brought doom to her line, and it was even said that she requested never to be buried as penance. Whether true or not, the legend reinforced a cruel view of her, that she was punished for love, for rebellion, and for following her heart. Her treatment after death reflected that judgment. In 1669, Samuel Pepys, the famous diarist, visited Westminster Abbey on Shrove Tuesday. He had just seen Shakespeare's Henry V and was curious to see the real-life Queen. He later wrote, "I did see the body of Queen Catherine of Valois, and had the upper part of the body in my hands, and I did kiss her mouth. I did kiss a queen." A bizarre tradition even developed where visitors would kiss her corpse, referenced in Shakespeare's plays as kisses for the queen who had witchcraft in her lips. But it didn't stop there. In the 18th century, her body suffered even more abuse. In 1786, antiquarian Richard Gough wrote that students had torn the remains to pieces. When he himself viewed her, he found the body had become a shapeless mass of pale tissue. It wasn't until 1798 that her remains were moved again, sealed away in a vault used by the Villiers family, but not marked. She was laid there quietly, and memory of her began to fade. In 1878, the Villiers tomb was opened to admit the recently deceased Countess of Buckingham. At this time, Dean Stanley of Westminster, hoping to restore the Abbey's monuments, sought to recover Catherine's remains. With Queen Victoria's approval, his team broke through the wall between tombs and discovered Catherine's decaying coffin, collapsed, stuck to the one beneath it. Her body had shifted, broken, and stuck against a damp wall. When they tried to lift her coffin, it disintegrated. What they found was tragic. Much of her body had turned to mush. Her skull was shattered. Most of her vertebrae and ribs were gone. Her right arm bones were incomplete. Not a single tooth was found. Some bones had been replaced or mixed up, including a pelvic bone where a shoulder blade should have been. Lime had possibly damaged the remains, though others believe it was simple decay. Tourists, over centuries, had likely taken pieces of her. Her remains were skeletal souvenirs, yet not all had perished. Her legs, still wrapped in 12 layers of cerecloth, were in excellent condition. Her skin, especially on one arm, remained intact. A silk-covered wool pillow had supported her head, and fragments of it were presented to Queen Victoria. Finally, after centuries of horror, Catherine of Valois was buried with dignity. Her remains were carefully gathered, placed in a new coffin made of English oak. The abbey workmen carried it in silence, lit only by a small lantern as they processed through the darkened abbey. They called it her third funeral. She was laid to rest under a new grey marble tomb near Henry V. The broken fragments of her old chest were placed inside along with a brass inscription plate. The Latin engraving reads, "Under this slab, rest at last, after various vicissitudes, the bones of Catherine de Valois, daughter of Charles VI, King of France, wife of Henry V, mother of Henry VI, grandmother of Henry VII, born 1400, crowned 1421, died 1438. Though her true birth year was 1401 and she died in 1437, those details pale beside the greater truth. Catherine had finally been given the resting place of a queen. The official report closes with the haunting words, "It is the latest royal tomb in the abbey, and, though long delayed, it has been thought that the singular and romantic history of a French princess and an English queen should at length be brought to an honourable end. Requiescat in pace.